Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Insider. It is Monday, November 3rd. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined by Marion I Love, Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, and John Bryce of LettermanRow.com and Football Scoop. Right, JB? Got that one right? Still on LinkedIn. Hey, it is Navy Week post Boston College. So, Priester, if this were, say, 2008, Irish fans would be looking at a two-game losing streak. They are not. Instead, awaiting placement in an initial college football playoff rankings. We will get to that in segment two, but we spent some time, guys, with Marcus Freeman, a lot of previewing in Navy. I don't think there was a single question, Tim, other than about the kickers of the Boston College game. But I think there's a lot of respect for Navy that goes around, and kickers in Navy kind of dominate. Let's start with kickers because I know we have plenty of thoughts on that.
Do we have to? No, we can talk about that. It's just, I think like there are various things on offense and defense that are frustrating, but when it involves kickers missing extra points, I mean, it just drives you crazy. And obviously was addressed thoroughly again today. And, Marcus Freeman said that they're looking at everything that they possibly can, the mental and the physical part of it, all of that. It's all involved. There's clearly a mental component to it. People laugh at me about talking about body language, but look at the body language of Notre Dame's kickers last Saturday, and it told you everything that you needed to know. They didn't think they were going to make their kicks. Diametti didn't think he was going to make his kick. Schmidt had no confidence whatsoever he was going to make his from 35. And then Burnett, you just don't know whether it's still an injury situation or what. But if Marcus Freeman said if they can't go out there and have confidence to kick extra points, then they might have to do something different. Now he expects to be confident when the time comes because they're damn extra points, for crying out loud. But it was really, really frustrating against Boston College.
And it's just, again, like we said on instant analysis after Marcus Freeman's press conference, it's just not at all what you expect out of Notre Dame in general, but especially under Marcus Freeman. Here's a guy who, as we've noted before, values special teams so much he still helps coach some of the units, helps coach punt coverage. Here's a guy who's hired two different special teams coordinators who've gone on to win Football Scoop Special Teams Coordinator of the Year. And I always point out that's a great award, not because I have any tangential involved with it, because it's idiots like I am not voting on it. It's voted by their peers. And so I think those awards are really valuable because they're coming from other coaches. And Marcus Freeman has had two different special teams coordinators in Brian Mason and now Marty Biaggi win the award in 22 and 24. So the investment in special teams is there top down at Notre Dame, and it's not lip service. And there are a lot of programs where special teams has to fight for time on the practice field because the coach just doesn't care. And that's just not the case at Notre Dame, which is why we're seeing some frustration from Marcus Freeman, and which is why he literally said today, like, if I don't have the confidence in kicking a PAT, then I have to be insane to keep trying to kicking a PAT.
Switching gears a little bit for this coming week, because we're gonna review the BC game, of course, a little later here in segment one. But listed as questionable for Navy, Cooper Flanagan left Achilles. He updating him if people didn't notice, he played a couple snaps versus USC, and he was in street clothes for the Boston College game. They're not going to go over four games with him. Marcus isn't going to say that out loud, but clearly they won't go over four games with him. So three left for Cooper Flanagan until the playoffs. Also questionable, Christian Gray left hip. Drew Mentok and I saw him running a couple hours before the game, but that's not the same thing as playing football, of course. Upgraded from out to questionable is Micah Gilbert with the left hand, which means maybe he could at least be out there for Pittsburgh in the end of the season. Still questionable, of course, Jaden Greathouse, right thigh. And newly questionable, Styles Prescott, left shoulder, which really would only matter if he can't practice at all because you are running out of players. Styles Prescott, I think, maybe had the roughest debut of all backup Notre Dame linemen in recent years. Of course, he had the roughest situation to walk into at the end of the game against Miami. Freeman said, Tim, he thought Styles Prescott be ready. If not, Matty Augustine and Will Black, I'm sure, will work there in his stead this week.
Yeah, I asked on Thursday of last week about who the next man in would be and narrowing it down to the interior offensive line. He mentioned Chris Tarrick, but we didn't talk about tackles, and today he did. And he said Prescott. He immediately said that Gerby Lambert could bump out to a tackle position, which makes perfect sense. Two freshmen, Matty Augustine and Will Black, who think both of those guys are going to be quality players for Notre Dame, would be in the running to get playing time now as well. So yeah, they've had to dip deep into that group of offensive linemen, second year in a row. That happens. It happens at a lot of places. It's happened 2 years in a row now for Notre Dame, and they just really need to stay stable here. I did not think that Sullivan Absher played a real effective game, having focused on him in rewatching the game. You just like to see a little bit more pop off the snap of the football, a little bit more mobility and quickness. Maybe there were some nerves in his debut starting here in 2025, but I just didn't think that it was the kind of performance that you were hoping for. I thought Joe Otting wasn't as good this game as he was against USC because he did have Billy Schroth next to him where they were working in tandem together. But I think Absher is going to need to pick up the pace. He didn't seem to play at a real fast pace to me against BC.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned for Otting that his, if CJ Carr's growth isn't going to be linear, Joe Otting's growth certainly isn't going to be linear either. But you make a great point that Billy Schroth next to him eases the transition a little more than Absher. And I think Absher, remember how Joe Otting looked the first time he went out there. I'm surprised Absher didn't play better. And it does go into a little bit. We had a couple of thoughts on the offensive line, and one of them is obviously short yardage struggles have been a key all season, but they've also blown open some huge holes for Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price on base downs. And JB, I'll start with you. Where do you go as Joe Rudolph for these short yardage struggles? Because if you're having short yardage struggles against BC, and they really did, I mean they had plenty of short yardage struggles in this game. What happens when you're playing a defensive line full of game wreckers?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest lingering issue for this Notre Dame offense that we saw in the opener at Miami that we continue to see 2/3 of the way through the season. And where do you go? You have to. It's not just Joe Rudolph. You have to be more creative, I think, with your offense. I think we've all talked about we like what Notre Dame does with Faison in the flat, running to the sticks and getting just past the sticks. I think Malachi Fields is a guy that also, with his catch radius and the size of his frame, can give you some short yardage options there where he's running to the sticks and boxing a would-be defender out. So I do think Notre Dame has to explore some more options there. I'm stunned that it has continued to struggle this poorly, this much in short yardage situations. Do we see some more two-back sets? Can we see Aeneas Williams in the backfield alongside Price or Love and be used as more of a blocker? Aeneas Williams carved his way into being a factor in 2024 because he was so freaking good at pass pro. And the guy's just got a toughness to him, and his red shirt's burned. So he's not getting any carries. Why not let him have some lead blocking opportunities?
Have you guys seen enough of the game to comment on Absher's performance? That's just my opinion.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah. I thought he was an average. Yeah, yeah. Like
I
you wouldn't.
expected more from Absher because I threw out the nerves thing. I shouldn't have, but the nerves thing should have gone away at Miami when he played that game. And he's played enough snaps, But you could be right. It's a different situation. He could have been thinking all night. I got my first real start. I'm playing this entire game, and I can't blow it. He didn't blow it, but I mean, it was he had a great block on a 94-yard touchdown run for Jeremiah Love. Those count too, Tim Priester.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
you want to look at it that way,
the entire line contributed to that one,
including Ty Washington. Ty Washington with a fantastic.
That was a wipeout on that play. Yeah, look, when you're 6'8", 327, you just like to watch a guy play and say, okay, that guy's 6'8", 327, and I just didn't come away feeling like that. So he'll have another shot.
Yeah, I mean, I would grade it a C, and probably I thought Otting deserved an A for what he did against USC. So,
Right.
um, Absher is an older guy, so he's graded a little tougher because the expectation is there.
Yeah.
He's not a true freshman or even a redshirt freshman being thrust into that first career start. He's got some years under his belt, and there's more expected of him. So I think that's why he's graded a little bit more finely in this situation. But he needs to pick it up this week. He'll have a great chance to have a great game against Navy.
Hoping not to have to pick anything up that he drops again the rest of the year would be Jadarian Price, because that is 3 fumbles, and that makes, what's it called, Tim Priester from Chris Berman? Three's a trend, right? you can't say after 8 games when you fumble 3 times inside the opponent's 5 yard line, it's not a trend. Right now, doesn't have to be this, but right now he is this. He is a fumbler because that's what 3 and 8 games is in the same spot of the field. And unlike other fumblers, you got to keep playing this guy. Maybe not inside the 5, but Jadarian Price, as Marcus Freeman told me post game, that guy's earned a lot with us. They just got to keep giving him.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting. You know, he quickly came to his defense, and that's good. You're absolutely right. You don't, at this stage of the season and his development, you don't bench him. But clearly, he's in the scouting report, and you saw Omar Thornton really go for the football, try to yank it out of his hands, and he was successful in doing so. And it just can't. You just can't. It can't happen again. It simply can't. That's Notre Dame goes up whatever 12-0, 13-0 early in the second quarter as opposed to later in the quarter.
Yeah.
That could have changed the entire momentum of the game at that point, because now it's just bang bang, and there's a different feeling about the way this game is going. Grayson James gave him some life. You would have sworn listening to Brock Osweiler that he threw for 380 yards and they scored 42 points, not 10. But it's just no more. It can't. I mean, we know Price. Price is a very intelligent, conscientious kid, and it's probably eating him up more than all of us combined. But he's too good of a back for that to keep happening. And frankly, if he's going to jump to the NFL, he's going to jump to the NFL with a tag of, well, he's a guy that can't hold on to the football real well.
Very quickly, JB, I want to interject that Tim Priester watching the game on television, noticing the announcers, you may have found a soft spot for Notre Dame fans who do not like announcers when they are watching a Notre Dame game, because it's much different when you don't know what's going on and you hear an announcer talk like that. I had the game on mute on the bus ride home, so I did not listen to Brock Osweiler.
Well, I heard it. I heard it twice. Okay, because I rewatched again.
First one hurt, huh?
Yeah, and it's strange watching from that perspective. Your emotions come out a little bit more easy, even more so than when I'm in the press box, Tim.
Oh,
well, your furniture probably not very happy with you today then.
I hope Lori didn't get any ink pens thrown at her.
Lori was actually not there at the time, so she caught a break.
One very big positive coming out of the Boston College game is when I talk about run stuffs, and we were complaining about Notre Dame getting stuffed in TFLs, there were some tackles for loss and run stuffs by the Irish defensive line, because, man, they had it dialed in at some point there, Tim.
Again, still getting beat on the short yardage stuff, but I mentioned it on Instant Analysis that Notre Dame's run defense has been so good recently that they're now allowing under 3 yards per carry, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, Jason Onye continued to play well, 3 quarterback pressures. Josh Burnham with the game of his life, certainly game of this season, a ridiculous face mask penalty. Do we ever get any kind of clarification? If he did grab the back of the helmet, then the official should say that. It wasn't.
I think the clarification was his hand went inside this area. If you're not watching, this is bad radio if you're not watching, but it went inside the helmet area, and that is an automatic, apparently, face mask. At least that's what I got from a rules expert on Twitter who had a handle that was different.
He's got them all bottled up. He's trying to hold on to the top of them, and the guy's squirming out of his grasp. I don't care. That's a ridiculous call. That's a ridiculous call.
Yeah, I thought that was a terrible call as well in the game. But I'm glad you shifted to this, TO, because, I got a stat for you guys. And that is, through September, Notre Dame's entire defense had 13 total TFLs. They had 12 Saturday against Boston College.
Yeah.
And I noted that was obviously on Overtime Live with Drew Mintock. I noted the 12 was obviously a season high and that they'd really struggled in that department. But between then and now, I did the research, and they only got to 13 through the first month of the season because they had 6 against Purdue. So the other quality opponents they faced, they only had 7 total. And again, 13 through September and 12 in one Saturday afternoon alone.
If you don't like math, you're not going to like the next 10 seconds, but I want to back up Tim Priester's talk about the rush defense with these stats from the game. No rushing gains allowed in excess of 6 yards. Six, which is insane. Rush efficiency, 19%, lowest I've ever graded. Sack adjusted rushing average, 1.7 yards per attempt. And there was 15 stuffs by Notre Dame, including 7 tackles for loss by defensive linemen. Now that's a day right there. The bad is only the rush defense on 4th and 1 because on 3rd and 1 they're actually pretty successful.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
If you're going to go for it all the time on 3rd and 4th and 1, you're probably going to up your percentage. So you're making teams go for it. Now they were in plus territory as a big underdog, so they're always going to go for it. I think BC had the plan of if we can get it to 4th and 2, we're going. And if you're in 3rd and 3, you're going to get it to 4th and 1, 4th and 2. Notre Dame had a lot of stuffs on 3rd and 1. They just gave up the run on 4th and 1.
Yeah. Marcus Freeman is right, though. I mean, the reason you're giving up a lot of those because it's not 3rd and 3, it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. It's 1st and 2nd down where you need to do a better job as well. So, in other words, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down, they need to do a better job on all of those. But in the big picture of things, they haven't allowed none of the last 4 opponents to rush for as much as 3 yards per carry. And then with the sack yardage, it was 33 carries for 12 yards, which really, really helps your run defense average per
sacks
carry.
I don't know why they don't change that. Sacks are past places. It's pro football changed it 3 decades.
They're now, as you noted, TP, 12th nationally in rush defense in terms of yard per carry allowed. They're 8th in yards rushing allowed. So even more impressive there.
And that's with all of our talk about, okay, we were optimistic about the defensive tackles in the preseason, then very pessimistic in September, and it's really come around. You cannot give enough credit to Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash and the defensive staff, the way they've turned it around. And we said it repeatedly. The turnaround started against quality offenses. And so they've come a long way. It's amazing how the script has been flipped. The offense was good. The defense was bad. Now the offense is averaging under 30 points per game in the last 4 games, and the defense is putting up massive numbers. So we know that both sides of the ball can do it. We still don't know about the kicking game because Burnett, I guess, is 5 of 6 on field goals, but the missed extra points and all the nonsense going on there, they've got to get that corrected here real quickly.
One more thing that got better before we go to break. Another 3-pick afternoon. It's remarkable how many interceptions these safeties and defensive backs are getting. Oddly, I don't know how this happened. Another 6 completions of 18 to 25 yards allowed by Notre Dame's secondary. It was all basically in 2 drives. And I point that out because Notre Dame is 124th in 20-yard passing gains allowed this year. I think man coverage has a lot to do with it, so you get some of the good and the bad with it. Some of it was Texas A&M seemingly had 55 of them themselves. But when Boston College has 6 and Lewis Bond looks like the second coming of Rich Gunnell, if you remember that name, Tim Priester.
Oh, yeah.
You do know it was a strange – it was close during the game. You could give up 6 passes of 20 yards against Purdue when you're up by 50, but it was when the game was a 0-score or 1-score game and a 0-score game.
Not making excuses, but BC got Jaden Skeet back, and number one, he had impact on the game. Reed Harris only had 1 big play, but it was against Leonard Moore in the end zone. They've got a pretty decent. Lewis Bond is that's a chains mover, man.
He's one of their all-time leading receivers.
Man, I tell you what, he gets open. So yeah, some of these stats are, real anomalies. But
I think that one is, though. It's happened a lot this year.
I get that. No, I mean, Notre Dame, not that this is an anomaly, but Notre Dame now leads the nation in interceptions with 16. No, I'm talking about you're in the top 12 in yards per carry against you, but you're bad in short yardage situations. I mean, that's kind of an anomaly. But again, I think it gets back to what Marcus Freeman said. It's what happens on 1st and 2nd down. Instead of holding a guy to 4 yards, you get 6 or 7, and now you put yourself in a bind.
I didn't want to put this in the questions, but somebody asked me about the non-fakey punt that Marty Biaggi unveiled during that game. That non-fake punt when Jeremiah Love took the direct snap on a fake punt would have worked for a touchdown had that pitch gone to Jordan Faison. because they had the entire field side open, and I wish we had Marty Biaggi this week. I had a feeling we were not going to get Marty Biaggi this week because of the kicking situation. But if we did, I wonder if there was an option for Jay Love to pitch that to face on because he was
Oh,
gone.
yeah. There's. It looks like there's a couple variations of what they've
Yeah.
done with that now. They picked the wrong one, or BC picked
Yeah.
the right one. I
BC
guess you
picked the
could
right
say.
one. Irish fans, you remember the name Rocket Ismail? His speed, his signature, his impact on Notre Dame football. Now you can wear his legacy. Signature Pro Apparel's Rocket Ismail collection is officially open for pre-order, featuring premium polos and rugby shirts, each embroidered with Rocket's authentic signature and officially licensed by Notre Dame. Pre-orders will ship in mid-November, which is perfectly timed for holiday gifting. Visit signaturepro.com and use code Irish20 to save 20% on pre-orders. That's signaturepro.com, legacy in every thread. We'll be back with segment 2, burning up the boards. Welcome back to segment 2. We call it Burning Up the Boards. Our first question from Kenny Covington, who may or may not have read Tim Priester's Snap Judgments. Do high school specialist rankings matter? Beyond just the current one, feels like Indy has signed a lot of number 1 or 2 rated kickers or punters or even long snappers, yet it might be the area of the biggest discrepancy in rating versus performance.
Well, for those that didn't read the snap judgments, I said, I've had my fill of kicking camp ratings and guys coming out of the number one kicker in the country. There's no pressure in a kicking camp with mom and dad standing over on the sideline. It's when the entire Notre Dame nation is counting on a playoff bid and you can't make a kick. I'm being a little bit facetious, but not really, because you cannot duplicate the magnitude of the pressure that the Notre Dame kickers are feeling, and it's obvious, and that's why when when Marcus Freeman brought up that they were looking at every possibility, the physical and the mental, I thought it was clearly just body language, and everything that went on against Boston College was three guys that didn't believe that they were going to kick the ball through the uprights.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the recruiting rankings have come a long way. Whether it's the Coles or Chris Saylor or whatever, they have gotten better through the years. But I also think there's so many adjustments from the high school to the college game when you can kick off of a tee versus when you cannot for extra points and all of that. So I think it's a really difficult adjustment, and the mental part I think is toughest of all because I still feel like there's relief and jubilation when a high school kicker makes a kick, but there's not an expectation. Whereas in big time college football, there's expectation that you're obviously going to make every PAT and that you're going to make the overwhelming majority of your field goals from 40 yards and in or 45 yards and in. So I do think the mental component is probably the toughest thing for these guys. I mean, we've all talked about Eric Schmidt and the how powerful his leg is, and I was just visiting with somebody on campus last week or the week before who made the same comment. Like you hear it when it comes off his foot. Like if you're on the Notre Dame practice field, you know when Eric Schmidt is kicking the ball, but you have to be able to harness that and not spray it like one of my drives off the tee box.
It's interesting because I mean, this has been going on for years with kickers. Like I know Eric Hansen always talks about. Remember, and of course, Priester, Ryan Burkhart, the guy that was the number one kicker in the country, but he just
Locally, yeah.
couldn't kick when he got to Notre Dame as a local kid. But Kyle Brenza was highly recruited. I think he predates kicking camp, so he was just highly recruited kicker that hit 650 yarders in high school. You're not finding that very often in this world. Brenza was highly recruited. He did well for Notre Dame until the 14 year when that wasn't all his fault. Ewan was of course great. Dorer was very good. I don't remember how highly touted Dorer was. I feel like that was like Brian Polian's big find, right? That he found a guy that looked like he could become a good kicker.
Yeah,
And
big kid athlete. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I don't know what the guys that have been good for Notre Dame, like Groupie and Schrader and those guys are, but I want to make a point here. Noah Burnett was an odd take for the North Carolina team, like the North Carolina writers. They were a little surprised Notre Dame couldn't go higher than Noah Burnett. Now, he had one great year, and I think Notre Dame probably thought we can harness that one great year again. Whereas Money Mitch was a take from everyone in the country,
Yeah.
when you're doing that. And Schrader has the biggest leg in the world. Like when you talk to Marty Biaggi about Schrader, somebody asked a question about Schmidt, does he have a leg like Schrader? And Biaggi in the middle of his answer was like, well, I mean, you're going in a different galaxy right now when you talk about Schrader. So I think the hard thing, guys, is when you've missed, then it's hard. Then it's mental to kick. I feel like
Yeah.
once you've missed, like Noah Burnett, it is in his head. It
Yeah.
is right there in his head.
Look, and I don't want to be like, I don't know what those guys, the pressure those guys have faced. I mean, the most I hit a baseball in front of 1,200 people maybe one time. So who the hell am I to say that? But I mean, the whole point I was trying to make was you could tell that it
Yeah.
was in their heads. Not so. I mean, Burnett, I just a kick like that, he just didn't get behind it, and it just kind of bled to the right. But yeah, look, it's a tough situation. I don't want to diminish that. But yeah, I think we were all a little bit surprised that it was Noah Burnett,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially on the heels of Mitch Jeter, because you knew the magnitude of signing Mitch Jeter.
Right. Right. I want to make one point about the notion of, and I'm not totally against this all the time, but the notion of going for two, if you're Notre Dame, because there's a lot of teams that think if you just go for two every time, it's not a bad idea. If you could get it half the time, you've done the exact amount of work as you're kicking your extra points. Where do they spot the ball when you go for 2 points, guys?
What, don't you have your choice
Yeah.
offensively if you're going
Yeah.
to go for it?
But it's a short yardage situation, right? Next to the
Yeah.
red zone and the goal to go.
Yeah.
That's what you want Notre Dame to do every single
You
time.
say,
So the whole plan is let's get our second
wow,
biggest weakness and
Cho-
just try it.
choose and lose, huh?
Choose hard. This is like, man, we're out of plays. I don't know what to do. So that could be tough.
Well, you said it, the bumpy road. You can't get better without doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that might be a bumpy road, or maybe it should be for a different. Or, you know what? Go for two with Riley Leonard every single time. You'd be absolutely fine, but it might be tough this time. This one is for JB. In fact, EastX903 said at JB, who was Notre Dame's most important opponent on the schedule to root for at this point. He thinks it would be Texas A&M and Pitt. Out of those two, which one? And is there anyone else? And this part of Irish Illustrated Insider is brought to you by who? Not
Um,
quite yet, Snake River Farms, but we're hoping it will be at some point, right? JB, here we go.
I'm hoping maybe even for a crossover between Snake River Farms and a Bayha winery. We're going after that crap. Yeah, Texas A&M, you want them winning out. You honestly, at this point, you want Miami to lose again. I don't think it would ultimately matter because Notre Dame is playing so much better right now. Um, and Notre Dame has amassed some good wins along the way, and will certainly have a chance to have a very quality win against Pitt, which can't possibly lose this week because the Panthers are open this week. So I think that you want Miami to lose, and I'm planning to do more of this on Thursday's pod for sure. I think you want Miami to go ahead and get another loss out of the way, just remove them from the conversation. You want A&M to continue winning. The more A&M wins, the better off you are, whether that's 11-1 or 12-0 and playing in the SEC championship. Then that's house money. And then Pitt, you want Pitt to again, they don't play this week, but they should be undefeated. I will remind people, and I was rough on Pitt early in the year. Their offense is going to be problematic for Notre Dame, especially coming off of this Navy game because of what Cade Bell does, the tempo he plays with. He's got some unorthodox wrinkles to that offense. But they blew a 10-point lead at a completely torn down and being rebuilt West Virginia program with less than 6 minutes to play in that game. They blew that. They led Louisville 17 to
17
nothing
nothing.
and maybe 24-7 as well. But 100% they led Louisville 17 to nothing. And I talked to some of the Pitt coaches last week, and they were just like, "Bro, we should be 9-0." Like, and it's criminal that we're not. But they feel it. They found something in their quarterback, Mason Heinschel, and again, Cade Bell's offense is unorthodox. So Pitt can't possibly lose this week. That's good news. So that means they'll be a 6-2 team. I don't think they'll crack the top 25 of the CFP Tuesday night. But then a week from Tuesday, who knows, depending on how next weekend's games go.
Man, it's Miami. It has no idea how to be a front runner. They have no idea how to do it. They can't follow through with it. It's incredible. Can't deal with prosperity. Mason Heinzel has given Pittsburgh a real lift. Now I want to see him against Notre Dame's defense,
Sure.
especially with as hot as Notre Dame is with the interceptions. Now ranking number one in the country with 16. But yeah, that's a scary game. Not looking past Navy because Navy,
Right.
I
If
I
you
never
lose,
enjoy a Navy game, even when
no,
Notre Dame.
if you
Even when
lose to Navy though, Tim, you just didn't belong in the playoff most of the time. You got to be
Oh
able
well,
to
yeah, no,
beat Navy.
yeah,
You got to
no,
be able to
no,
beat
no doubt,
Navy. You know,
no
yeah,
doubt. I
yeah.
just don't. Just the discomfort of watching a game like that unfold. It's
Yeah.
just any football game in which you feel like you have to score a touchdown every time you have possession of it. Man, if I had to watch games like that every week, I don't think I could. I'm not sure that I'd be able to handle that on a weekly basis.
I
You know
will
what?
note real quickly on Miami. What did them in this past weekend is what we've talked about with Notre Dame. Miami lost that game because of short yardage woes, and so they're the prime example of what can happen to you if you don't fix your short yardage issues.
Um,
C.J. Daniels was hurt too.
this has nothing to do with Pitt's ability, like of making a, obviously not gonna make the playoff, but I feel like if you're, whenever you talk about rivalry games, like Notre Dame will play a rivalry game closer, and someone will say, yeah, of course it was a rivalry game. I mean, Pitt did blow a rivalry game to West Virginia. There is no bigger thing for those guys for West Virginia than that Pitt game. That
Yeah.
was like I almost give Pitt some grace. I know they lost the game in a bad way, but that team was never going to stop coming at them. They probably would have put someone else away in that situation. It's I think people that just do I think college football analysts, fans, and media forget that when they're ranking teams. Like, well, they lost
Yeah.
to West Virginia. Like, yeah, well,
Well,
West
those are
Virginia
they're
fans are different.
they're neighbors. Like
Yeah.
I've covered a Notre
Oh,
Dame game at West Virginia and stayed in Pittsburgh. Those
yeah.
they're
Oh yeah.
neighbors.
It's like
Yeah,
72 miles or something
Yeah.
like
yeah.
that. It's close. I would point out to you, Pitt isn't likely to make the playoffs, but if they win out, the Notre Dame game has no bearing on ACC
Right.
standings. They just have one loss in the ACC. So there is a scenario where Pitt can play for the ACC championship, and then they would make the playoff if
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
won the ACC
You just
championship.
wouldn't be getting voted in that way. So that's the only
Correct.
difference.
We have a question from Maz1515. What is your level of concern with the lack of mental discipline of this year's Notre Dame team?
Um, I think it's real. We talked about it again, instant analysis today. It's not at all what we've come to expect from Marcus Freeman teams. Now, remember they opened last year at Texas A&M and had one of their highest penalized games in Marcus Freeman's era as head coach, and then still found a way to win that game by 10 points. So I don't think
And they
that.
got away with the biggest penalty of all, Bo Collins.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
exactly.
an end of the game penalty by Bo Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so they've sort of whistled by the graveyard, so to speak, because I don't think their silly penalties have really cost them anything of yet. You could make an argument some of them did against Texas A&M for sure, but we haven't seen it truly cost Notre Dame. So it's a concern, though. The Notre Dame's general volume of penalties this year is a concern for me.
I did count them up, if you guys remember last time, and I've kind of divided them for stupid penalties and stuff here. Gray ripping off these are in during the play penalties that cost him greatly. Gray ripping off the face mask at A&M was a killer because they made A&M score on third down instead
Oh
of
yeah,
having
yeah,
a
yeah.
fourth down decision. The Josh Burnham one is rough to call. That's an during the play penalty that was a bad one, but I don't know if that was a face mask. I don't think that was a face mask, so it's rough. Had a blindside block by Malachi Fields. I mean, I think that just happens during plays. Post play unnecessary roughness. You have Faremo, Flanagan versus Arkansas. I forgot about that, by the way. That's kind of fun. Tay Johnson, Junior Tui Halamaka, which was pretty cheap. Jason Onye, which is insanely cheap. The one where yeah.
Yeah.
Jalen Sneed, which was the dumbest in a very long time against Boston College, was benchable. That's a
It's
ridiculous
not.
penalty.
That's not even a late hit. That's a
Yeah,
late hit.
yeah, it's just stupid. Unsportsmanlike for Young did the pose when he was posing over a player. Traore did the gunshot, which made Freeman mad because you can't do it. And then we've had a lot of debate on the message board with Willie Amuasa. It just looked enough like a throat slash, and as I said on our tiny little TVs, we couldn't tell. If it looks like a throat slash and it's something different, it can be determined to be a throat slash.
We're expect we're
No one should do
expecting
it again. No one should do
no, I
it
mean
again.
we're expecting refs to differ with all the problems that the refs have had. We're expecting them to differentiate between it's a slashing motion. Don't do it. Look, this whole argument about this. Forget what. I'm an old timer, so I have this opinion. What does Marcus Freeman think about these penalties? They're inexcusable. You can't have them. That's what the head coach thinks, and we think the same thing. Nobody is saying that they can't express emotion and celebrate. KVA later came back and did a handshake with Traore. Do that. They're not going to whistle you for that. There's a million ways for you to celebrate. Don't do it the way that they're going to throw a flag for. That's all.
I don't know if can see this on the TV. On after every interception, the players all now run to the other end zone and celebrate together in front of the fans. So like Notre Dame's fans were at the far corner. Don Schuler intercepted a pass 94 yards away. They all ran all the way over there and were posing like this for the Notre Dame fans because I think you can't be penalized for running over. Right after it, they ran 94 yards and all posed with Notre Dame fans. And I'm like, well, you probably won't get penalized for that. I don't think that it'd be hard to throw a flag on that, right? It would be difficult to throw a flag. What do you do? Celebrating all the way over there together. Like, what could the penalty really be? Yeah, my level of concern is a solid medium, not because of the throat slash, but because I think they'll stop some of the post play things. But I think they're quick to be. I think Boston College gets under their skin very easily. And I think USC really got under their skin, especially Jeremiah Loves.
Yeah.
I thought the refs did a great job of not calling penalties on
Yeah, they
USC
really
and Notre
did.
Dame because they were
Yeah,
getting into it every play.
they really did.
I think Navy, if Navy's smart, they will egg Notre Dame on a little bit near the end of the play, and Notre Dame will get a 15-yard post-play penalty against Navy.
Notre Dame's not the only undisciplined team as it relates to the kind of stuff we're talking
Oh,
about.
of course not. But
I mean, all over the country. That's the nature of the way the game is played now.
I think they're quicker to respond than last year's team was. How's that? I think they're quicker to all of a sudden be like, oh gosh, he should have thrown a penalty on that.
Well, think of the
Yeah.
guys. Think of the guys that led the team last year.
Yeah, it's probably
that aren't here.
And just real quickly, driving home this point, this is the most that Notre Dame's averaged in penalty yards per game under Marcus Freeman. They're right at about, I think, 58 yards per game in penalties. They're also up there in averages. A couple of years ago, they barely averaged 5 penalties per game, and now they're averaging over 8 penalties per game, I believe it is. So it's a legitimate concern, and it's more than they averaged across a 16 game campaign a year ago, when they averaged right at 50 yards a game in penalties and maybe 6+ penalties per game. So the numbers are up, both in the number of penalties and the number of penalty yards. So fair to label that a concern.
And also when you talk about like throat slash or all those things versus or not throat slash, like when Drake Bowen was getting into it with a guy against NC State and he just casually points at the scoreboard, you're not getting flagged for that. Like that's a age old wonderful way to make fun of someone.
I would say
When KVA pointed at the guy's name because he jumped off sides was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He literally went behind him and pointed at the guy's nameplate. I mean, that's funny.
look, they have meetings about everything. Have meetings about, okay, this is how we're going to celebrate. This is how we can't celebrate. That's all. You prepare for everything else. Maybe that's not very spontaneous.
No,
but
don't react to Navy when they try to get you to get a penalty. It's something that should be brought up because that's coming. I'm telling you, everybody listening, it's happening. They won't because you have to be fired up to play Navy. That is the big change. Marcus Freeman has made sure there's violence in Navy week. It carries over to the field. You're going to see something post play, and the refs will throw the flag for Navy. From Otzerpol, have we, fans of media alike, underestimated the defense and overestimated the offense? And I assume he means the last 5 weeks. Yes, since September, the defense has been very stingy. The offense hasn't exactly been pouring on the points. Is the defense the more reliable side of the ball right now?
JB,
Well, Look, going into this season, we expected the defense to be the more reliable side of the ball, and we thought that this would be among college football's best defenses. And it's getting there. It just took it longer to get there than what we expected. I still think when you have arguably the best player in all of college football on the offensive side of your offense is really, really good. There's some growing pains for sure because you still have a redshirt freshman quarterback who oozes talent and also has the grand experience of 8 total starts. And so, um, the defense brought back a ton of starters and has um, better health right now and better depth of talent right now. So I think it's fair, but I think this is it's still a little different than last year. Like last year, you felt like every game was going to be a bit of an offensive slog for Notre Dame because it just posed no threats downfield. And this year, we're seeing Notre Dame is completely fearless in taking the top off of the defense.
Tim, you mentioned the big passing plays that opponents have had against Notre Dame, and yet here now Notre Dame's 12th in the country against the run per run. Is that a difference? Is that the difference between Chris Ash and L. Golden?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because we would have never chosen for a team you're covering Al Golden's method of giving up the run because he doesn't think he can lose with it versus Chris Ash. But then Golden made a good point. He's like, what are they going to do? Run us all the way down the field? And he's like, no, you're right. They're not going to do that. Obviously, got to find a happy medium. You know, looking at FEI, these are the offenses Notre Dame has faced. So the defenses might be the call here. 3, 11, and 3 was USC. 3, 11, 13, 16, 30, 40. And then you got to go all the way down to 90 for BC. 31 is coming up in Navy. That is not the level of defense Notre Dame has faced this year because it would be A&M. I don't want to do bad radio and look it up right now while you guys talk, but it would be A&M, and who's the next best defensive team they have faced? USC?
Probably Miami.
Oh, yes, yeah, especially that day.
Yeah.
And I do believe in that in college football. Miami
When
that day was a hell of a defensive team.
yeah, when the defense was starting to make its move against quality offenses, the defenses Notre Dame faced, you feel like the offense should have continued the role that it was on, but and we haven't have we actually said CJ Carr's name yet? I don't. Have we? I don't. Maybe we did.
Not in this
I
one.
don't think we mentioned on our instant analysis, but give him credit for a nice bounce back performance. And look, there were some avenues downfield that he took advantage of. One of them missed one late that could have added to the score, and you would have thought a little bit better about it. But look, give me great defense first and foremost all the time, and they're playing really, really good defense. Now you got a little bit of a different animal, different challenge this weekend.
And I think Notre Dame will improve on offense over the last month. They just have to make sure they're
They
good on
should
offense.
really. We haven't. Well, we'll probably talk about Navy
Yeah,
a lot more. Whoo, boy, you can throw the football against
yeah,
Navy.
yeah.
And Navy has in recent years has been very good against the run. So I'm sure they will do what we have just seen recently. That we're going to make sure you are going to do the best we can not to allow you to run Notre Dame. And if you want to throw it, throw it. Believe me, everybody else has been doing it against Navy.
Right. Question from G Burn and K Beasley. What is your level of concern with ND's defense to ability to get off the field against Navy because of these third and fourth and shorts that they will go for offensively? They are going to go for it and not punt often against Notre Dame.
High. My
Yeah,
level of
that's
concern
high.
is high.
Higher than my level of concern for their discipline.
What do you think, John?
Definitely a level of concern. I wouldn't call it a real high one. Again, I apologize for referring back to instant analysis so much, but Notre Dame has the better players. Notre Dame has the bigger players, and we know that Notre Dame has struggled in short yardage defensive situations, as many defenses do. But I also think that Notre Dame will have a chance to push around the Navy offensive line at some times in the game, and so because of that, that's not that's just not an overarching concern of mine as I evaluate this Notre Dame game.
Yeah, and Navy's going to feel good about stopping the run. They got big Landon Robinson in the middle. He's a load. Um, they're. I have this right here. Their their interior defensive linemen are fourth and fifth on the team in tackles. You do not see that very often, and so that's Landon Robinson and Griffin Willis. So they're by Navy standards, they're big up front on their D line, and so they'll go into this game feeling good about themselves. I think Jeremiah Love could clip one off like he did early last year, and change the attitude a little bit. But this will be a great. This should be again a great opportunity for CJ Carr in the passing game to really really push the football down the field.
Last year in a blowout, Navy punted twice, and I point that out because they couldn't punt in the second half if they wanted to win the game. That's one way of looking at
Yeah,
it. But another way of looking at it is they obviously, if you guys remember the self-inflicted turnovers, there's 5 turnovers there, and it has been pointed out a couple times. Notre Dame had 2 havoc plays in a game where there are 5 fumbles. That's an
Yeah.
all-time low. You can't have 2 havoc plays on defense against Navy and win, but somehow they blew them out. So that is strange. But there won't be a lot of punts in this game. Notre Dame often does not punt against Navy. Notre Dame will go for it on fourth down against Navy. And the other part of it is, even with a good kicker, you don't always want to kick your field goals against Navy. You want to keep you
yeah,
want to you're looking to get 7 as much as you possibly can
yeah.
when you're playing them.
And this is
Well, yeah.
where, excuse me, John. This is where this is a really good test for Notre Dame's interior defensive line. Let's see Jason Onia have a really good game against this kind of an opponent. Elijah Hughes, let's see him have a really good game. I'm confident Donovan Heinisch can and will. But this is a really good test to see just how good that run defense, how legitimate it is, because again, Navy will test the hell out of you.
Yeah, I was going to say I like Donovan Heinisch in this game. I think he can be particularly disruptive and very active against the Navy O line. And then to your point, To, yeah, you got to score touchdowns because you just don't know how many possessions you're going to get, and that has to be a significant area of concern for Notre Dame as it approaches this game.
I'll go over this in great detail instead on Thursday, but the best players last year that we had down against Navy, I gave Jalen Sneed the game ball, so he at least played great. Adon Schuler, Jack Kaiser, Kingston Viliamuasa was a little lower on the list. Tui Halamaka, who's played them, this will be his 4th time.
Yes.
Gabriel Rubio, who will be missing. And Drake Bowen had a good day. And I think it was Marcus Freeman mentioned looking at some KVA and Osbury film. He's like, you could tell those guys were playing against Navy for the first time. Well,
Yeah.
now they'll be playing against Navy for the
Well,
second time.
they need Christian Gray back in the lineup for
Yeah,
this
he
game
actually
with
had a
his
wonderful day
experience.
against
Yeah,
Navy as well. Yeah.
with his experience. Hey, To, it is Eli Heidenreich week.
It is. That's right. It's your guy.
He's a good player, man. He's a good player. He's the kind of guy we've seen these guys in recent years, the walk on or the preferred walk on or the guy that the transfer from a lesser school that's on all of the special teams.
Mhm.
But Heidenreich is leading Navy. Heidenreich has 31 receptions. A
That's
Navy player has 31 receptions.
crazy.
He's a good player, and he's fast, but he's not Nathan Kent fast. Their other wide receiver who's like,
Yeah, he was the concern last year going to the game, and I
yeah,
think they hit the ball once. And then, but if he would have caught it, somebody else would have dropped the ball for Navy on the play, and it would have come all the way back because that was just remarkable how badly they choked that
yeah.
one off.
Alex Tesco will not be throwing the ball on the ground
Yeah, yeah.
this time around. This time, no. We have a question from Strider 22, Stride 3R 22. Which unit has surprised you the most thus far, good or bad, compared to your expectations when the season began? Strider 22 chooses the defensive tackles since they've aided the 12th ranked rush defense in terms of yards per carry.
Early in the season, I was disappointed in the offensive line. And then they were really coming together very nicely. And now I've lost Ashton Craig for the
Yeah.
year for sure, and Billy Strouth still multiple weeks. So that's tough. Uh, it goes without saying, hugely disappointed in the place kickers.
Yeah.
How can you not be? And probably overall Um, I had high expectations for the receivers, but they've been better than I expected, especially because of how freaking good Fields and Pauling block downfield. And they've proved very capable and reliable targets for CJ Carr, but they're completely bought in to Notre Dame. And credit to Mike Brown for what he's done for how those guys are blocking downfield. So that's probably where I land on that. And then we all thought CJ Carr was really talented, but I couldn't have expected him to operate with quite this efficiency.
I had high hopes for the receivers, but if you would have told me Shaden Greathouse would have 8 targets at this point, I would have had fewer than less high hopes for the receivers. The biggest disappointment for me, and I'm going to go micro here since we've talked about every position every week, twice a week, 3 times a week, is the backup running backs.
Well, are you disappointed in them or their lack of use?
I'm
We don't
disappointed in the
know.
lack of use, but that's part of it. If they're not on the field, they can't play. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get
Right,
it. I don't
right,
get it.
but that's a fair disappointment, but we don't know if we should be disappointed in the players or their lack of use or what
I'm
it is.
disappointed in their lack of use. I know for a fact that Aeneas Williams can play football.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
seen
it
he's going to play
seems
football somewhere else. Tell you that much. When this keeps up, it's
it seems it's a little unnecessary, you know?
it is
I think
unnecessary. They've ripped apart 5 teams.
I think
Yeah.
Tom Zwiller had the great stat on Overtime Live for us Saturday night that 94% of Notre Dame's rushing offense has come from Love, Price, and CJ Carr.
I'm sure. I mean, wouldn't I would have guessed it? That 94%. Like it's crazy to me that that can't be. I mean, we heard he told listen, it's our fault. He told us. Came out and told us in the spring.
No, I did. Yeah. Jaywan Sider, you're saying.
Yeah, I mean that was.
Yeah.
I think you could get something out of him, and I think you have to start getting something out of him inside the 5 yard line because Jeremiah Love has not been absolutely fantastic in short yardage situations either, compared to other things he does absolutely fantastically.
No. The receiving core, I mean, I thought CJ Carr would be good, right off the bat. I liked Malachi Fields. I respected the numbers that Will Pauling came in with him. But John, you mentioned, the downfield blocking. Um, that when you throw that component in, I think the receivers have been pretty sensational. Tight end's a disappointment, but it's not surprising because we knew it was skimpy without Cooper Flanagan. We talked about the defensive tackles. We're hopeful in the preseason it'd be pretty good. We were disappointed early. The level that they're playing at now, where you go a month without allowing a team to average 3 yards per carry in a game, they're playing really well, and they're doing it without Rubio. And I don't know that there's any spectacular play, but I think collectively they're playing really, really, really well. So, when I saw that they were Notre Dame's 12th in the country per carry against the run, I was like, what? And then so you start looking back at the game because you knew that the numbers against BC, 33 carries, 12 yards, that's really going to bump up the percentage or the yardage that you're giving up. But man, it never would we have guessed in a million years. And the defensive ends are making plays. Boubacar Traore's making plays against the run. There's no doubt about that. And I want to see Bowen and KVA. I mean, I bet KVA is going to be pretty good against millennial wing T football here this weekend.
His second time through.
Yeah, yeah.
Next question from Manatee. The offense has occasionally shown weaknesses that range from, and he lists these: confusing play calling, inability to convert short yardage, frustrating lack of execution in the red zone, horrible kicking, which is not the offense, and some struggles to string together multi-play drives. Which one of these do you think is an exception to the rule? Which one is going to be an issue that dictates the long-term ceiling? Let's throw out kicker. Doesn't count on this one.
Okay.
Because it's obvious the answer. So let's go with something different. Kicker's the answer. That's going to dictate the long
Yeah,
term.
John, why don't you jump in there?
Um, I mean, you can nitpick the play calling. There's been a few. I don't, by and large, watch a Notre Dame game and say, "What the hell is Denbrock doing?" Like, I
Well,
don't.
I think he's saying that popped up like once, all of
Yeah,
these, once or
yeah,
twice.
maybe so. But short yardage and red zone to me are intrinsically related, and they're the two major concerns for me. We noted this. Drew and I did on Overtime Live Saturday night. I think they're right under a 80 percentage touchdown rate, something like that in the red zone. That's not where they want to be. They want to average, I think they were looking to score more than 90% of the time and to be right at around 90%, 88% on touchdowns. So that to me, the red zone and the short yardage is you better keep enhancing it, as Marcus Freeman says, you better freaking fix it. Because that's especially if you have to go on the road in the playoffs, and frankly, that's what I expect at this point is that Notre Dame would be a road team in the opening round of the playoffs. And if that's the case, I think those issues are magnified even more.
Yeah, I believe these numbers are correct without looking them back up. Notre Dame scored touchdowns in 17 of their first 21 red zone penetrations. They're 9 of 18 since then.
Yeah, they're
And
44th nationally
yeah,
in red zone touchdown percentage at 66% red zone
yeah.
touchdown
I mean,
percentage.
44th isn't horrible, but when you start out 17 for 21,
Yeah, what we need is there's a site that shows you just the last three games. Stuff like that is valuable here because last five games, as you said, Priester, they started out great. Then all of a sudden they didn't, and then it got
yeah.
worse. I do want to talk. I know it's going to be Al Washington this week, which is perfect because it's Navy week and they just played BC, and Joe Rudolph will be the last one. But the Eli Raridon no red zone targets. Some of that would be CJ Carr's decision, but not really. You could make Eli Raridon your number one red zone target, your number one,
I
excuse me, no end zone targets and two red zone targets. You can make him your number one option on more plays when it's first and goal at the 5 yard line.
the way Navy has struggled defending the tight end,
It's
TL,
happening.
I'm guaranteeing an Eli Raridan score this weekend.
Well, I guarantee it the last 3 weeks, Tim Priester, and look where that got Eli Raridon. It's not that good.
Navy really has difficulty defending quality tight ends, and Eli Raridan is a quality tight end.
Final question from Low Key Scott. After listening to Friday's pod, he must have listened to our Thursday pod on Friday, and checking out ND's 2026 schedule, it looks like they will only play 5 home games next year. Is this accurate? First of all, is that accurate? Is there a
That's
way of
what
avoiding it? And when is the last time this happened? It must have been before the 12 game.
Yeah, it's not accurate, JB.
is it not? I thought they've got Rice at home, and they've got Michigan State at home, and they've got Miami and SMU at home. I think they're going to add a MAC team, which
So
would
it'll
be
be 6.
That'd be
that's
six.
five. That would just be five. And then Wisconsin is a neutral site game at Lambeau Field. Pardon me. And as my understanding is
That's a
where
home
things
game for Notre
right,
Dame. Yeah.
right. And my understanding of where things are in the USC negotiations are that is, I mean, it won't be at Notre Dame next year. It's not expected to be.
Right. Right.
It's expected to be a neutral site game next year, um, as of right now. That could change. And when they are looking at the iterations of a 6 to 10 year deal with USC to keep this going, you're talking about a couple of home games for Notre Dame, a couple of neutral site games that would be considered home games for Notre Dame, and then some games at USC. So, but if they get USC on the schedule next year, then it stands to be a neutral site or USC home game. So yes, it would be 5 home games because Notre Dame willingly gave up a home game for the Lambeau Field contest, and then the Navy game is at the Patriots Stadium in Foxborough, Mass.
Okay, I'm wrong. That
So
shouldn't
Notre,
happen. You shouldn't only play. Nobody.
no.
Why are you playing? You
Yeah.
shouldn't only
And
play
I
5
didn't.
home games.
I apologize. I pulled a priester there. I hit the mute button and I don't think it took. So I apologize for coughing like that.
You hit a button that also made like loud noises too. It was like a cough with a loud noise button. Whatever that button is, it says you hit the any key, JB. There's when Homer's looking for the
I'm
any key.
embarrassed. That's pathetic.
So the last time I can think of was 1995. They played 5 home games. Um, that predates 12 games, as noted on the question. They played Northwestern at home and lost the opener, which will ruin your home game schedule a little bit. They played Vandy at home, bad Vandy. They played Texas and whooped them, number 13 Texas. They played number 5 USC and killed them. No, they played six. I'm sorry. They had Navy, Boston College, USC, Vandy, Texas, and Northwestern. So that was a six-game season. I was certain Navy was neutral, but of course not. It's a odd numbered year. So there has been one five home game. I was so certain of my memory there, I didn't look it up. I can find out while you guys talk. We'll do bad radio here. This is, but you, Tim Preacher, you're right though. You can't have five home games in a 12-game season. That's not.
There's one more. This season was an aberration. They only played five in 2020, the COVID year,
Yeah, there was 10
and
games.
yeah, it
10
was
games.
a 10-game schedule, and they were lucky they had to add South Florida late, I think, to get that fifth home game.
Well, they had to join a conference to
Yeah,
get those five home games too. That was a lot. I mean, they kind of saved the ACC conference that year too as regular season champions. Would have been nice if DJ Uiagalelei didn't
Look,
start one game.
if you were only able to schedule five home games, well, then I guess being an independent is really impacting their schedule.
Well, the Wisconsin game is a reschedule from COVID.
Right, right, right.
So like this is a you like JB brought up COVID. That game was supposed to be played in 2020. It got moved here. So that is probably it probably seemed like an okay idea then, and it's less of an okay idea now.
Yeah. Well, hey, would you rather see Wisconsin and Notre Dame Stadium next year, or do you want to go to Lambeau Field? I mean, I realize it's a disadvantage for Notre Dame having to do that, but
Marcus Freeman and John Bryce and Tim O'Malley have different answers to that question. Tim Priester, I can tell you that much.
I want to go to Lambeau.
I'd rather go to Lambeau. Yeah,
No, I want to go to Lambeau. Don't get me wrong, but man,
well, I wrote about this early in the season on Football Scoop as well. Nobody plays more games away from home than Notre Dame. This is the first year Notre Dame's had seven home games in quite some time, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, it's
they
happened a
had
few
one
times,
recently,
but
but
not
it's been a
not
while.
very often.
Yeah, not very often do they even get seven home games.
Right.
Whereas you look at the teams that they're fighting for positioning with in the playoff rankings this week, Tuesday night, so many of those teams have eight home games. So many of those teams never play less than seven home games. And that's why I joked. I mean, first of all, that's why I asked Marcus Freeman about it early in the year about opening at Miami. And I joked with him then if he had ticked off Pete Bavacqua or his predecessor, Jack Swarbrick. I do think when you look, nobody in college football has won more games away from its home venue since he took over than Marcus Freeman. Like, that's not opinion. I know that. I've researched that.
Well, he's the man to go on the road 7 times then next year, I guess.
Well, I mean, part of it was Warbrick with the Shamrock series. They began a 6-5-1 model, but what people would like to argue would be, well, why don't you just do a 7-4-1 model and you keep your Shamrock series like that? That is what the fix is from the outside world. Is go
Maybe
7-4-1.
maybe that's where being an independent is limiting.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Is that enough to give up independence? I don't necessarily agree with that. But look, I understand. If you're a Notre Dame fan and you see Notre Dame's only playing 5 home games next year, I'd be alarmed too.
Well, and Notre Dame has now sent out season ticket renewals for 2026 as of this week, or those are going out this week. How many people want to renew? Are you going to renew at the same price for two fewer home games? Because then your per ticket price goes way up. So, I don't think season tickets went up this year, even though Notre Dame had a 7-game home schedule as opposed to last year's 6. I'd have to ask some friends and double check on that. But certainly you would expect a reduced ticket cost next year if indeed you officially end with only 5 home games.
Hey guys, I want to let you know that AI is really dumb, even dumber than me, because when I typed in real fast, when's the last time Notre Dame played 5 home games, it brought up 2021. And I thought to myself, that's not possible, man. I remember that season because I was covering it. It was just a couple years ago. They played 7 home games. So I'm not
Yeah.
the only one that's wrong about 1995. Even the internet doesn't know. There was one game in the pre-Weiss era. Notre Dame played 5 home games. I'll figure it out. But to find out, you are going to have to stay with us for the next hour as I research live on. No, actually, you can come to the message board and I will have the answer for you. Until then, for Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop, I'm Tim O'Malley, about to hit the internet before I do school pickup. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.